Right, hello folks, 6 more games to come, following on from the previous video in the playlist. So longer checkmates and some short games, here we go. And the first game, Privalov against Malanyuk, Vladimir Malanyuk, Tallinn in 1974. Okay, let's see how this goes. And in fact, we'll flip the board because black wins. So, okay, e4 and e5, knight f3 and knight to c6. Bishop to b5 and a6. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes, castles from white, bishop to g4 and h3 and h5. Oh, right, we've seen something similar in a recent game in another video, the idea of the fishing pole. So if white takes the bishop, black can recapture with the pawn, and suddenly you have this rook pointing at the enemy king. So this we've seen before. White isn't falling for the trap in this game. So d3, queen to f6. Okay. Knight b to d, knight b to d2, knight e7, rook e1, knight g6. It's taken a while to get to the key position in this game. Let's see what happens when we get there. d4 and bishop d6. And now white decides it's time to take the piece. Let's see what happens to the eval bar. Eval bar says no big deal, still pretty level. Okay. Pawn takes on e5. Bishop takes. Now it's liking black a little bit, but still, I mean, minus 0.7, 0.8. It's pretty level. And here, knight takes e5. Now, is this about to disappear? Yeah, a little bit. No, okay. Oh, mate in 6. It had a bit of a think about it and then decided it's mate in 6. And as Dr. Dave puts in the manuscript, white's knight can't stand it any longer. Okay. So queen to h4 is played. So the immediate threat is queen here mate. Remember, the rook guards that square too. How does black choose? White choose to try to get out of it? Well, f4. We saw g3 at the end of the previous video. So this is now a threat again because the pawn is guarding here. King to f1. And now knight takes f4. And so with the pawn guarding here, the knight guarding here, there's absolutely no way to prevent queen h1 mate. When we go back a few moves, though, the computer said mate in 6. So let's just give it a minute to think about it. And what would have been white's slightly better way to delay the inevitable? So we know queen h4 is a certainty. Mate in 5, f4, g3. That's what happened in the game. Okay, so it's just ruinously giving away pieces for no particular reason. Yeah, okay, fine. So nothing that can be done there. Okay, so that's our first game. Looks like another example of the fishing pole technique or tactic working quite well. Okay, game 2. Medson against Mitchell, 1978. We're in London. And well, the game looks to have been resigned after 11 moves. Okay, here we go. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to b5 and a6. And once again, the exchange variation. Okay, so bishop takes and pawn takes and castles. Bishop g4, h3 and h5. So we've been here before. Excuse me. Rook e1, queen to f6. And this time white goes for the fishing pole very, very early. Takes. Knight takes e5. Interesting. So white just gives the material back straight away, but the computer's saying slight advantage to black. Queen takes and queen takes g4. Bishop d6 from black. Look at all these pieces pointing down in this direction. Very scary. And after this move, so what do we got? So position's level. It looks scary, but minus 0.2, it's level. But then white plays d3. And suddenly we have mate in 2. Oops. Okay, so at this point, press pause if you want to have a go at trying to work out why it's checkmate in 2. Otherwise, I will carry on in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so this battery is the key, but at the minute, the king has an escape square. So after rook h1, the king won't have an escape square. The king has no legal move other than to take the rook. And now queen to h2 is, of course, mate, protected by the bishop. Wow, ouch. Really, really, really nice. fact, one move there, turning the game from very much quite a level position into a disaster for white. Okay, let's get our third position. And looks like another win for Black. Black's doing very well in this episode. Okay, so we have Voloshnikov against Romanov, Ishevsk in 1980. I never will, for the life of me, understand where Dr. Dave Regis finds all these games, but still. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6. We've got exactly the same opening again. We've got a bit of a series of openings. A6, bishop takes, pawn takes, castles. Yeah, it is going to be same opening again. Let's see how it works this time. H3 and H5. So no need to re-explain that. And this time C3 from white, presumably wanting to play D4. And Black goes straight down with queen to D3. Now then, what's the analysis? The eval bar saying still very, very level. Okay, white goes for bait, takes the bait off the fishing pole, and Black recaptures, and knight takes E5. So isn't that good news for white? Everything seems to be forked. Computer says 0.00, as you can see. So computer thinking the game is level. And then Black plays bishop D6. Now, this is a draw. If white is happy to take a draw, and Black certainly is, and after bishop to knight takes queen, bishop here checks, supported by the rook. King must move here. Bishop to G3 is check from the rook. The only legal move is for the king to go back. Bishop checks, and you end up with check by repeating the position. Okay, it's a draw. We can go backwards and forwards all we like. But in the actual game, it would seem white decided to try to win the position and got greedy. Knight takes G4. Okay, well, still fine. Black castled, still fine. And in fact, in this position, if anything, white's doing okay, isn't he? Look, the computer's saying +2. But now queen to F3. And Dr. Dave puts in the book, have a think about what you would play here. Well, we know that this is checkmate in 2 moves. White has walked into checkmate in 2 moves. Once again, press pause if you want to have a go at finding this checkmate in 2 moves. Otherwise, I will carry on in 3, 2, and 1. And once again, the brilliant move is rook H1. And now there's obviously only one legal move. The king must take. This rook is now undefended, so queen takes rook, and that's check. And because the bishop guards H2, that is mate. Ouch. So both sides could have had a comfortable draw 2 or 3 moves ago. Instead, this rather brutal finish took place. Wow, that's nasty. All right, our next game is Black wins again. It's remarkable. Okay, so 4 in a row for Black here. And is it exactly the same opening? Yeah, and exactly the same opening again. So maybe that's telling you all you need to know about the how dangerous the fishing pole tactic is. So we have Boevermeister against Van Rijchem. Okay, 1993, correspondence game. So they're playing by post. Let's see how this one works. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop to B5, A6, bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, and castles. Bishop G4, H3, and H5. And it's worth saying, look, the eval bar is telling us this is actually a relatively level game. There's nothing too bad with this for both sides. You know, plus 0.5. White should have a tiny advantage anyway from the opening. So this is fine. D3 and queen F6. Yep, knight B to D2. Right, so now we've got a move that's different from the previous game. Okay, fine. Bishop to D6 from Black and B3 from white. Okay, knight to E7, so both sides just developing, fine. Rook to E1, I'm looking for a disaster, no disasters yet. Knight to G6, that's coming into this really nice square here. So I'm starting to think that I'd rather be playing the black pieces here, but the computer says dead level. Bishop to B2. And sure enough, knight to F4, and it's a big hole, why not? And at this point, game is pretty level. But when the real game, white decides it's time to take the bishop. Okay, well, computer says that's fine. Okay, takes. Knight's now attacked, so okay, again, level. Yeah, nothing to worry about. Now, white plays knight to h2. And that's not going to do it. It's not a great move. It's not leading immediately to checkmate, but it is leading to a huge advantage. So if you want to work out the next move, feel free. What does black do, which just gains the advantage? Well, I'll press pause if you want. Otherwise, I carry on in 3, 2, and 1. And it is, of course, rook takes. And the point is that black is now up material and has a lovely attack against the white king. And if king takes, well, now queen h4 check, king to g1. And after castle's queenside, there's actually nothing that white can do really against the threat of the rook coming across and ganging up with the queen down on these squares. So yeah, very, very nasty indeed. Okay, I wonder if the next 2 games today will be fishing pole games. No, we've got a different opening for the next two, well, one of the next 2. Yeah, we have a slightly different opening for the next one. Let's get our new board. Okay, so another win for black as well. Wow, okay. So we've got No Name against Jack Stevenson. It's a Welsh inter-county game, 2008. All right, here we go. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, ping. Bear with me a minute. Yeah, bishop c4, bishop to b4, and a3. Bishop takes, pawn takes, castles and castles, and knight takes e4. A4 from white, that looks odd. I wonder what the point of a4 was. It looks like just a bit of a waste of a time move. But anyway, it was played. D5, bishop takes d5, knight f6. Bishop takes c6, queen takes d1. Rook takes d1, pawn takes b6. Nothing dramatic happening yet. Knight takes e5. Bishop to g4, attacking the rook. And rather than playing knight takes, white goes rook to e1. Rook f to e8. So now this knight is pinned. You can't actually do this now because, oh, now I just see, again, this is another example of me not actually reading the games in advance. I just decide to do 5, 6, 7 games, whatever. And there was me busily going, you can't move the knight because it's pinned. And white didn't play knight takes bishop. What actually white played in the game was knight takes c6. And then, yeah, oops. Well, okay, fair enough, checkmate. Is there a big advantage to anybody here particularly? Yeah, in fact, in this position, white's absolutely fine. White's doing all right. But yeah, moving the knight, big blunder. Unless, of course, you moved it to d3, which would be fine, because then rook takes rook and knight takes rook. Okay, well, okay, no great fireworks in that one. Fine, let's get one more game to go. Okay, so our final game for this video is Bohm, B-O-H-M, Bohm, I don't know, against Hernandez, Amsterdam 1979, and it's 6 out of 6 for black in this video. Okay, so here we go, e4, e5. Oops, I think we're back to the fishing pole variation as well here, so we'll see knight f3, knight c6, bishop to b5, a6, bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, castles, bishop to g4, h3, h5. Yeah, we are, absolutely. d3, queen f6, bishop to e3, knight to e7, knight b to d2. It's all pretty familiar stuff so far. Similar moves, similar positions. Nothing dramatic happening. Knight g6. And actually, at this point, computer says slight advantage to white. It doesn't like knight g6. I wonder what it'll make of the fact that white now plays pawn takes bishop. Yeah, it's perfectly happy with pawn takes bishop. Pawn takes pawn. So as usual, threatening the knight, opening the rook up on the king. Knight to g5 by white. And that's where the computer is now saying, yeah, that things have turned around. So knight to g5, not the best move. Just wondering, I was going to say, I think probably because we can cut off the defense of the knight. Sure enough, and looking back at the manuscript, knight to f4, yeah. Queen takes g4, and Dr. Dave here puts in this position, it's -4 now, so black's comfortably winning. Puts here, white's king seems to be surrounded by friends, but actually that's the problem. So what do you think might be an awesome next move for for black to play here? Well, how about queen takes knight? Queen takes knight. Now, if you play queen takes queen, you get checkmated because that's check, and the rook guards the 2 escape squares. So you can't play queen takes queen. So what actually happened in the game was white dropped the queen back to f3. And so now I want to ask you if you can find the move. It's mate in 2. Can you now press pause and see if you can find the absolutely fabulous winning move in this position? It's mate in 2 black moves. So yeah, hit pause. Otherwise, I carry on in 3, 2, and 1. And the move is queen takes here. Queen takes g2. Now, queen takes queen, because you've got no other choice. It's the only legal move. And now once again, knight to e2 check with this rook hoovering up h1 and h2. So absolutely unavoidable checkmate. All right, I hope that has been quite interesting. That's 6 really, really good games, 6 wins for black, 5 of them in exactly the same opening. Nothing wrong with the opening, just that white can never seem to resist getting greedy and taking that piece on this square and opening up this line. They really ought to avoid doing that. Okay, thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next time for 6 more of these miniature games. Great stuff. Bye for now.